I prepared everything to give my husband the bad news that I wanted a divorce, but instead of crying inconsolably, he had the nerve to be happy. I've always said that a relationship is basically a lifestyle brand, and for the last 3 years, I've been the sole creative director of us. When I met Mark, he was the human equivalent of a default setting on a smartphone, functional sure, but absolutely zero aesthetic value. He was just a basic software engineer who thought wearing a wrinkled polo shirt counted as dressing up for a date. I saw him as a fixer-upper, a raw canvas that I could mold into the perfect Instagram husband to complement my rising influence. I spent literal thousands of hours and dollars curating his wardrobe, teaching him how to find his light and making sure he didn't ruin my feed with his boring tech bro energy. It was exhausting work, honestly, and I truly felt like I was doing him a massive favor by sharing my platform and my vision with him. The problem with being a visionary is that eventually the person you're improving starts to feel like an anchor dragging down your engagement levels. I started noticing that whenever I posted a solo shot or a reel about my personal journey, the numbers were significantly higher than when I included Mark. People were clearly picking up on the fact that I was carrying the entire brand of this relationship on my back, and it was starting to look desperate. I began to feel like I was dimming my own natural glow just to make him look somewhat presentable in our shared digital life. It wasn't just about the photos, it was about the vibe, and Mark's vibe was becoming increasingly unmarketable for the high-status life I know I deserve. I needed a partner who matched my energy, someone who didn't need to be told how to hold a coffee cup for a candid shot. I decided that the only way to save my personal brand was to undergo a total rebirth, which unfortunately meant cutting Mark out of the picture. I didn't want it to be a messy, low-quality breakup because that would be off-brand for the sophisticated woman I've become. I went out and bought a $400 bottle of vintage Bordeaux, not because I wanted to share it with him, but because it felt like the right prop for the end of an era moment. I set the stage perfectly in our living room, ensuring the lighting was soft and the background was free of any clutter that might distract from the gravity of the situation. I even practiced my sad but empowered face in the mirror for 20 minutes before he got home. I was prepared to be the bigger person, to comfort him through the inevitable breakdown he was about to have. When Mark finally sat down, I poured myself a glass of the wine. It was exquisite and launched into a perfectly structured monologue about personal growth. I told him quite clearly that I've outgrown our vibe and that the narrative of our marriage had reached its natural conclusion. I used words like alignment and energetic shifts to make sure he understood that this wasn't just a whim but a necessary evolution for my career. I was fully prepared for him to fall to his knees, maybe beg for a second chance, or at least show a relatable amount of devastation. I even had my phone nearby just in case he looked pathetic enough for me to film a conscious uncoupling reel to announce the split to my followers. I thought it would be a beautiful, poignant piece of content that would really resonate with my audience. Instead of the expected emotional collapse, Mark just reached over, grabbed the bottle, and poured himself a generous glass of my expensive wine. He took a sip, to let out a long, relaxed sigh, and actually smiled at me like he had just been told he won the lottery. "Honestly, Ness, that's a huge relief," he said, his voice sounding suspiciously cheerful for someone who was just dumped. "I've been waiting for you to realize we don't fit for a long time now." I sat there, stunned, waiting for the punchline or the sudden burst of tears, but they never came. He didn't even have the decency to look sad, which I found incredibly disrespectful considering the amount of work I put into his public image. It was like he didn't even care about the brand we had built together, or the fact that I was basically his only connection to a high-status social circle. He just kept smiling, looking around the room as if he was already mentally redecorating the place without my expert guidance. The sheer audacity of his happiness felt like a personal attack on my value as an influencer and a wife. I had spent 3 years making him look like a man who belonged in a luxury magazine, and he was treating the end of that privilege like a holiday. It's truly disappointing when people show their true colors the moment they think they no longer need you to maintain their status. He was acting like I was the burden, when in reality, I was the one who gave his life any semblance of aesthetic quality. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says maybe he's happy because he doesn't have to take 400 photos of your salad every time you go out to lunch anymore. Finally gets to eat his food while it's hot. Up's reply, he should be grateful I gave him an aesthetic in the first place. He would still be eating microwave burritos in a dark room if it weren't for my influence. Anonymous User 2 says, why on earth would you waste a $400 bottle of vintage Bordeaux on a man you're literally dumping? That seems like a very expensive way to be aesthetic. Ops reply, it wasn't for him. It was for the end of an era aesthetic that my brand requires for major life transitions. He just helped himself to it without asking, which is typical. Update 1. It's been 6 hours since my last update, and the atmosphere in this house has shifted from disrespectful to downright delusional. Mark is currently in the bedroom and I can literally hear him humming from down the hall. Not just humming, but whistling. Actually whistling. Some upbeat, jaunty tune like he's starring in a musical about being single. I find it incredibly tasteless to be making that much noise when we are in the middle of a major life transition that requires a certain level of solemnity. It's like he has no respect for the gravity of a divorce, or he's intentionally trying to trigger me with his fake joy. I eventually couldn't take the noise anymore, so I went into the bedroom to talk about the division of assets, specifically the designer furniture I spent months sourcing. I made it very clear that the velvet sofa and the marble coffee table were integral to my brand's backdrop, and that he would have to find his own basic furniture. He didn't even fight me on it. He just shrugged and said, keep it all, Vanessa. I want a fresh start with things that are actually comfortable to sit on. The absolute nerve of him to imply that my decor choices were uncomfortable just to hurt my feelings is peak pettiness. He knows how much work I put into the interior design of this home to ensure every corner was photo-ready. I tried to remind him that without my constant guidance, he's going to fall right back into his old, pathetic habits. I told him he'd probably be back to wearing cargo shorts and living in a beige apartment within a month without me to curate his life. He just laughed an actual, genuine laugh and told me he had already booked a suite at a luxury hotel for the week while he finds a new place. A suite? I don't even know how he thinks he can afford a suite at the places I usually frequent without my influence to get us a discount. He's acting like I'm the one being evicted from paradise when he's the one losing the only interesting thing about his life. The way he's packing his bags is so disorganized and haphazard that it's physically painful for me to watch. Just throwing things into suitcases without any regard for folding or organization, which just proves he never learned anything from me. It's clear that he's in deep denial about how much his life is about to downgrade once he's no longer the husband on my feed. I honestly feel a bit sorry for him, even though his behavior is completely unacceptable and borderline sociopathic. He thinks he's gaining freedom, but he's really just gaining a life of total irrelevance and poor fashion choices. I hope that hotel suite has good lighting because he's certainly not going to know how to find it himself. Update 1 comments. Anonymous User 1 says, that's the sound of a man who just got his soul back. Op whistling is usually a sign that someone is finally feeling light and free of a heavy burden. Op's reply, that's the sound of a man in deep denial of his loss. He's clearly performing happiness because he knows I'm watching. Anonymous User 2 says cargo shorts are infinitely better than being used as a human prop in someone else's social media feed every single day. Let the man live. Ops reply, you clearly don't understand the importance of visual cohesion in a modern relationship image. Is everything in the real world. Update 2. It's been 2 days since my last update, and the reality of the situation is starting to set in, but not in the way I expected. Mark left yesterday, and the house feels strangely empty, not the minimalist chic empty I usually aim for, but a hollow. I have no one to document my life. Kind of empty. I tried to take a few new beginnings selfies this morning, but it's just not the same when there isn't someone there to tell me if the angle is working. I decided to check his private Instagram account, the one he never let me manage or even follow officially, to see if he was spiraling yet. What I found was a complete shock to my system and a direct insult to everything I've worked for. He's already posted a photo at one of the city's highest-end steakhouses hanging out with the boys, and he looks radiant. There's no other word for it. His skin is actually glowing, and he's wearing a tailored jacket I have never seen in his closet before. I did some serious digging through LinkedIn and some mutual contacts, and it turns out Mark was promoted to a senior VP position months ago and never told me. I was out here acting like the primary breadwinner because of my influence and brand deals while he was quietly building a massive fortune. He literally had an entire life and a career trajectory that he didn't feel the need to share with my brand at all. I feel incredibly betrayed by this lack of transparency in a marriage. There should be total honesty about success and financial status. He lied by omission for months, letting me believe that I was the one carrying the high-status image of our family. He's literally wealthier now than when we started, and he managed to achieve all of it without a single hashtag or link in bio post. It feels like he was just using me for a social life and a pretty home while he waited for me to eventually leave him. The fact that he's thriving so quickly without my curation is a slap in the face to my entire career as a lifestyle expert. I'm sitting here drinking the leftover Bordeaux from our breakup night, and I can't stop staring at that photo of him looking so happy. It has to be the lighting in that restaurant. I know his angles better than he does, and there's no way he looks that good naturally. He's probably just trying to overcompensate for the fact that he's lost the most valuable asset in his life. But seeing him in that expensive jacket, looking like a man who actually knows what he's doing, makes me feel like I missed something major. It's like he had a whole other version of himself that was high status all along, and he just didn't think I was worth showing it to. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says he hid the money because he knew the second you found out, you'd spend every penny of it on content and trips you couldn't actually afford. Smart man. Ops reply: in a marriage, there should be transparency about success, and his silence was a form of manipulation. He lied by omission to keep his assets for himself. Anonymous user 2 says he's definitely got that divorced glow while you're sitting at home drinking leftover wine and obsessing over his private feed. The tables have turned. Ops reply: it's just the lighting in that restaurant, trust me. I spent 3 years fixing his face. I know exactly how he looks without professional grade filters. Update 3. It's been 1 week since my last update, and my digital life is currently in a state of absolute chaos. I tried to post a moving forward photo dump to reclaim the narrative and show my followers that I'm thriving, but my engagement is absolutely tanking. My comments section is a nightmare. Instead of asking about my outfit or my new era, everyone is asking where the husband went. When I finally posted a brief story explaining that we've split, people started finding his page and following him in droves. He's gained over 2,000 followers in just 4 days, and all he's doing is posting low-effort photos of his new life. One of those photos features him leaning against a brand new Porsche. A Porsche, for heaven's sake! He told me for years that we couldn't afford a luxury car because we had to reinvest in my career and pay for my high-end equipment and travel. It turns out he was just hoarding his senior VP salary while I was struggling to maintain our aesthetic standards on a limited budget. The strategy I used to make him look like a successful, high-status accessory has completely backfired on me. Now he actually is successful in the eyes of the public, and everyone thinks he was the one carrying me all along. I felt so insulted by the car post that I actually reached out to him to say we should talk about the car and how we're going to divide that asset. After all, I'm the one who improved his image to the point where a Porsche actually looks right on him. I basically built the man who deserves that car. I waited for hours for a thoughtful, perhaps even apologetic response, but instead I got a single notification. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. A thumbs up! It's the most dismissive, low-effort response possible, and it proves he never truly valued our intellectual or emotional connection. My followers are literally jumping ship to go watch him live the life I scripted for myself, and I'm left here with a house full of aesthetic furniture and no one to take my pictures. It feels like he stole my entire brand and just walked away with it, leaving me with the bill. I tried to post a reel about choosing yourself, but someone commented that I look thirsty compared to Mark's effortless vibe. I have never been so insulted in my entire life, and the fact that he's doing this to me intentionally is just cruel. He's using the tools I gave him to destroy the person who created him. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, turns out Mark was the only thing people actually liked about your page. People love a glow up, and his is much more satisfying than yours. Ops reply, people liked the vision I created for him, not the man himself. They're just curious now because of the drama. They'll get bored of his lack of style soon. Anonymous user 2 says the thumbs up is the ultimate I don't care about you or your drama move. He's completely checked out, and it's honestly iconic. Ops reply, it's dismissive and proves he never valued our intellectual connection. It's a sign of a very low maturity individual who can't handle a real conversation. Update 4. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and the boomerang I threw at Mark has officially come back and hit me square in the face. I've spent the last 14 days watching my brand crumble while Mark's life looks like something out of a luxury travel magazine. I realized far too late that by freeing myself to find a higher status partner, I actually let go of the only truly high status man I'll likely ever have access to. I thought I was the one curating him, but it's becoming painfully clear that Mark didn't need my guidance at all. He was just humoring me for 3 years, playing along with my little social media games because he probably thought it made me happy. The final divorce papers arrived via a courier today, and they were tucked inside a sleek professional folder that probably cost more than my last 3 outfits. There was a small note attached, written in his precise, clean handwriting. "Thanks for the wine. It was a great way to start my new life." It wasn't a jab or a mean-spirited comment. It was just final. He's moving on with a level of class and financial security that I pretended we had but never actually achieved on my own. I'm sitting here in my perfectly aesthetic living room, surrounded by expensive things I can't afford to keep, and the silence is deafening. I have my freedom now, but I've never felt more like a loser in my entire life. My follower count is dropping every day as people lose interest in my solo content, and my value in the influencer market is plummeting. Mark is out there living the high-end, successful life I scripted for myself, and he's doing it with an ease that I could only dream of. I thought I was the director of this story, but it turns out I was just a supporting character in his. I won the divorce because I got exactly what I asked for, but I lost the only thing that actually gave my life any real status. I'm just a woman with a $400 wine habit and an empty house, while he's the senior VP with a Porsche and a divorce glow that I can't filter away.